Just one day after former President Trump swept all but one of the Super Tuesday states, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney is launching a new political action committee. She unveiled her new PAC, The Great Task, on social media with a scathing post, skewering her party for once again, Donald Trump as its nominee. She wrote this: "The GOP has chosen. They will nominate a man who attempted to overturn an election and seize power. We have 8 months to save our republic and ensure that Donald Trump is never anywhere near the Oval Office again." The Great Task is a multi-candidate PAC sponsored by the former Congresswoman. The PAC is not yet affiliated with any presidential candidate. Joining us now, former Republican Congressman David Jolly of Florida. David, thanks so much for being with us this morning. So let's start there. Liz Cheney is representative of a significant group of Republicans, voters who simply will not back Donald Trump. We saw a lot of them break for Nikki Haley in recent weeks. Do you think they'll hold firm and either support President Biden, support a third-party candidate, stay home, or will they inevitably come back to the GOP and Trump?
Well, I think that's the decisive question in November, Jonathan. Will they stay, will their opposition to Donald Trump lead them to vote for Joe Biden, or will they stay home or consider a third party? And this is where I think the leadership of Nikki Haley and Liz Cheney and others becomes so critically important. I'm not sure that Nikki Haley herself really led a movement as much as she did create a vessel for these voters. And so if you are one of these voters who was most concerned with Donald Trump's fitness, his fitness for office was why you opposed him, the fact that he won on Super Tuesday doesn't make him more fit for office. And so where is the intellectual honesty? Where is the call to action? It kind of requires you to actually then say, well, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. And I would suggest, with all due respect to Liz Cheney, who is a true patriot and has demonstrated that in the last year, the line that is missing from her statement is, therefore, I will be voting for Joe Biden, and I'm asking you to as well. Jonathan, this is not 2016 where there's a lot of unknowns. It's not 2020. It's 2024. We know the threat that Donald Trump is. The voters who voted for Haley said he is a threat. He is unfit. So the only answer then is to go all the way and suggest, so therefore I will vote for Joe Biden. And I think we should hear that from Nikki Haley and Liz Cheney. I'm not sure we will from Haley. Maybe we will from Liz Cheney before November.
David, give us your brief assessment simply of what these primaries showed us about Trump's strengths and, more importantly, his weaknesses.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble. I mean, we look at the polls and you see notionally he's up a few points over Joe Biden. We looked at the electoral math, but the truth is this coalition of soft Republicans and independents who have chosen Democrats over Republicans. They were there in 18, 20, 22. They're still there in 24. And in 24, we actually have the motivating issues like Dobbs and reproductive freedom that we didn't have in 18 and 20. I think Donald Trump is in trouble. Ignore the polls for a minute. I would much rather be in Joe Biden's position today than in Donald Trump's.
So Joe Biden has a big position tonight, the State of the Union address, a national audience, probably his biggest audience of the year. The only one coming close might be his convention speech, or if he and Trump do have a debate or two. What does he need to do tonight in terms of policy, but also proving vitality when he speaks to the voters?
Yeah, look, I think Joe Biden is in a very strong position. I think the one thing that has to happen before November by Biden and Democrats is to take control of the issues of the economy and the border. And you're seeing him do that. But right now, I think Republicans have gotten away with framing the issue. The economy somehow is soft. That's not true. The border problem is Joe Biden's problem. That's not true either. Joe Biden has led a solution that Republicans have stopped. So in some ways, I think posture is as important as policy. Be unapologetically on offense and rope-a-dope Republicans like you did Rick Scott on Medicare last year, because the issues and the positions are on Joe Biden's side. But right now, Republicans have gotten away with a high dose of negative partisanship. And Joe Biden's job between now and November is to continue to turn the tables on Republicans.
Yeah, Biden delivered a strong showing at last year's State of the Union. David, lastly, do you think that Biden himself tonight, would you advise him, should he go after Trump directly by name, calling him out on what he's done before and plans to do in a possible second term?
Look, I think I'm in the minority. I don't think he should mention Donald Trump, and I don't think he needs to. A strong defense of democracy, a strong defense of kitchen table issues and growing an economy for all people draws a natural contrast with Donald Trump. I've been with the House 25, 30 years. I'm a bit of an institutionalist. Tonight is not a campaign speech. Let the contrast of the issues work for itself. It will be clear that you're also isolating Donald Trump and his vision for the country versus yours.
Yeah, President Biden will hit the campaign trail right after the speech tonight. He's got stops in battleground states of Pennsylvania and Georgia the next couple of days. More travel planned for next week. Certainly a high-stakes speech tonight, one that his voters believe can help change some of the narrative around Biden and, as you say, David, really draw contrasts with MAGA Republicans. Former Republican Congressman David Jolly of Florida, thank you for joining us this morning. We'll be reading your latest piece for MSNBC.com. Please come back soon.